All right, welcome to Psychology of Sale. Are you having problems closing? Now, first of all, what I mean by that is, and let me explain this to you. You're never going to close 100% of your deals. If people tell you that they do, they're lying to you. You should want to close 100% of them. And I think what happens with us is, so like when I was in insurance sales full time, I'd go to your home. My closing ratio over 6+ years full time was 80-something percent, 83%. I track my numbers. Real estate, it's hard. It's not a one-stop shop kind of deal, right? So you can't really, but when you're like making an appointment, you can track it. I was 80% plus. Construction material, I was door to door, no leads. Definitely was not 80%. Shit, I don't even know if I was 8%. But I made a lot of sales. And people were blown away at how many sales I made by just knocking on people's doors, selling them something they didn't even ask for. When I was selling roofing and siding, probably 30% of the time. You should want to close 100%, and you should always try to figure out how you didn't close the ones you didn't close, right? When people say to me, Sean, 25% of them are going to buy no matter what you say, 25, and I used to think that. I was like, yeah, you know what? Yeah, you're right. 25% no matter what you say is going to buy. And I'm like, I don't know. Like, I still got to say something. 25% are going to be a little bit of work. 25% are going to be a lot. And then 25% are going to say no matter what. I believed that early on. So I was like, man, he's just part of the 25%. Can't close him. Then it was like 25% are really difficult because that was what they taught me. 25% will say yes no matter what. 25% are going to be a little bit of work. 25% are going to be quite a bit of work, but you can get them there. And 25% no matter what you say, you can't get them there. Well, the funny thing is I was never below 80%. So I'm like, dude, your math's already wrong. And I think all of them took some work. I didn't walk in where they were like, man, here, I just want it. Like there was some work. And I learned that for me, as I got better at communicating with people, and I got better at being direct, and I got better at avoiding objections by the way that I presented, as I did all that, my closing ratio went up. Let me tell you what happens though in sales a lot. We don't want to accept the fact that if a client doesn't buy, it's our fault. Anytime I've not closed somebody in lead-based sales, not cold knocking, when I knocked on people's doors and they got the roof done 6 months ago and they're like, dude, why are you on my property? I got to be honest with you, dude. I can't. They just got a roof done 6 months. For me to sell them, I don't think that was my fault. Anytime there was a lead filled out, online, direct mail, social media, whatever it was, and I went there, or I called them and I didn't close them, it was my fault. It was not anybody's fault but mine. It was 100% my fault. And I think that the struggle for a lot of people is I watch people that don't succeed in sales. And they just continue, the client did this, or they did that, or they said this to me, or they didn't want the product. And I was always like, no, they didn't want it from you. They 100% wanted the product. They just didn't want it from you. And by the way, with the way you talk, would you want the product from you? The problem is that if you're not going to accept responsibility for the failures, you're never going to have the growth you need to be successful. That's why every time I didn't close, the 18% and in-home and whatever, anything else I was ever doing, I asked 100% of the time when I'd done everything I could do and I wasn't going to close. It's still my fault, but I didn't have anything else to ask. I did everything I could, but it was still my fault. I'd say, if you don't mind me asking, I need to report back to my manager, what was the reason that you didn't buy today? Was it because I didn't explain it to you properly and give you the right knowledge? Was it because the product was too expensive monthly, or you don't like or trust me? But I have to document one of the three. That would spend another 5%, 10%. They'd be like, yeah, like, no, it wasn't that, Sean. It was, we can't do $250 a month. I'm like, okay, why don't we talk? And then I realized I missed in my presentation of options. I didn't walk them through it, right? But when you're insanely and incredibly accountable, it's it's hard to not grow when you're that accountable. Like, it's really hard to not grow. Like, really, honestly, you're like, dude, how do you not grow when you're that accountable? So I think that when you start saying things like they didn't, they won't, they don't want, they are annoying, I just think in sales, that's the beginning of the end for you. So you should want to close 100%. You will not close 100%, but you should figure out 100% of the time you don't close, best you can. Why didn't it? Why didn't you make a sale? And until you do that, it'll be hard for you to be a top producer, top salesman. It'll be hard for you to excel. I watch sales organizations. I'll hear the training. I'll hear them all blame the client and the buyer for not buying. And then I watch the sales organization. 6 months later, the sales organization is not even in business anymore. They ain't no business anymore because ain't nobody there to sell nothing, because ain't nobody selling nothing, because everybody blames everybody but themselves. Lack of accountability. And then that actually kind of pours over into your sales presentation, where you're insanely accountable and you don't get emotional about it. You don't blame other people. You don't get frustrated. The minute your mental health, whether you have a good day or bad day, is predicated on whether he or she buys something, that means you don't have enough appointments. You don't have the right self-image. You're not accountable enough to understand what you're trying to do here. So you want to close a higher percentage, be more accountable. It's your fault when you don't close. What can you do differently to get better?